We are live. Hello and welcome. This is Heidi Love, your host for Recovery Talk, and I'm here with my other host, Timothy Earle. I'll let him introduce himself in a minute. We are coming to you from the islands of Hawaii with some aloha today. So we're here as a part of Love Coach Academy. We're here every Tuesday, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we talk about just about everything. And today's topic is going to be about fear. Where is fear eroding our lives and our relationships? What's unhealthy fear? And what's a healthy fear? Where does fear serve us? Because it definitely does both. So stay on, and we'll be talking about that today. And I'm going to let Timothy introduce himself, and we'll dive right in.
My name is Timothy Earle. I am also an affiliate with Love Coach Academy, and I am a private life coach. I work with families, couples, individuals on all kinds of things, from addiction, both substance and process addiction, as well as communication, sexuality, intimacy, the list goes on. Family dynamics, work with at-risk youth and young adults who are, the term is failing to launch, I don't like it, are having difficulty finding ground. And Heidi does almost the same things that I do, and has, I would say, a real specific ability to work with trauma on top of everything else I just said. I can work with trauma, but it's definitely, I'm not as versed in that as some. We both offer free intake calls, 20 to 30 minutes, to see if your need is a good fit to what we have to provide. You can find our information at lovecoachacademy.com, or Heidi will be scrolling our websites at some point. And feel free to just email us or send us a text on our phone numbers, or give us a call, and we'll set that call up. I guarantee that with Heidi or myself, even if we don't agree to work together, you'll walk away with some tool or some little bit of advice that is helpful. And I wanted to say one other thing. We are also right now in the cycle with Love Coach Academy offering, and you can find more about this at lovecoachacademy.com, offering Saturday classes from our master love coach teachers. Heidi and I just did one on jealousy. It was really good. And I think if you sign up for the whole curriculum, you can rewatch that video. Otherwise, you can also just pay to watch one. And Heidi and I will be doing another one on March 27th, I believe, at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And that'll be about love fantasy, love addiction. How does it serve us? How doesn't it? So those are some of the things we're doing that you can join in on. And today we're talking about
fear. So I want to remind you guys that we are on Facebook Live, so you can type into the comments, and most of the time we get them all and I can read them and we can type back to you. So we want to interact with you that way. If you have any questions, we love to go over that and include you. I mean, we're here to be with you. Timothy and I have plenty of time together when it's just talking the two of us. So we would love to have you included. So jump on and share this with your friends and join in the conversation about fear. So I love one-liners and acronyms. Those of you that watch this or know me know that about me. I think when you have a complicated brain, I've found it a very helpful tool to simplify things. I guess that's why I love one-liners and acronyms. So some of my favorite acronyms for fear, and I'll type these in the chat box too, are fuck everything and run. And that's what a lot of us do when we're in addiction. And there's also face everything and recover. And I also like this one in regards to relationship, face everything and reveal, because how scary is it to reveal yourself to another human being when you're in fear, right? But that I also like false evidence appearing real. So those are my little acronyms. You got anything to say about those acronyms, Timothy?
Yeah, I'm writing them down. I think they're so juicy and good. False evidence. Say that again.
False evidence appearing real.
Yeah, that reminds me of like things in this mirror may appear closer than they actually are, right? Oh my God. That's great. False evidence. And I think, underneath that one, we have the Scott Katamas one of most of us seek information to prove our false evidence belief more, right? So we go, oh my God, this is happening. And we start looking for anything that could prove that that's happening. When in reality, if we went and faced everything and revealed, we went and talked to the person. I call it fact checking. So if we went and fact checked, our story would be dispelled, and we would begin to realize that, oh, I'm operating out of fear, out of insecurity. And I love in the form of addiction, like face everything and recover. I call it the fuck it card. Like everybody's got a fuck it card, and sometimes it's really useful to use the fuck it card. I'm out of here. I've quit a job that was the best thing I ever did. 2 hours I worked there, and I quit right after 2 hours. And that meant I went and started getting more work in the area that I was interested in at the time. And that was a good use of my fuck it card. Whereas you're 15 years in a relationship, 12 of those years have been incredible, and your partner says, let's go see a therapist, and you go, fuck it, I'm out of here. I think that might be a mistake. I would rather you face everything and recover, or face everything and reveal, and at least give it a shot before you use the fuck it card. So those are my thoughts on all that.
Good. I was able to type them all out while you were talking. So great timing. Good job, Timothy. Like typing as fast as I can. I can't spell, so that's one of my fears, is being judged for not being able to spell right. And I always say, why limit yourself to one way to spell a word,
I think Einstein's the most misquoted individual on the internet, right? So you always want to, if it says Einstein said this, you always want to fact check it. And so I'm going to say one that I'm pretty sure isn't true, but I was told this when I was realizing I had trouble spelling. I was told Einstein couldn't spell. And so I used to say that all the time. Well, Einstein can't spell. But I do agree with you that spelling is not a measure of intelligence, which a lot of people think it is. And so I empathize with you around the spelling thing. If you are on this call, please feel free to put in the chat box something about those 4 one-liners that Heidi just gave us, or your general impression of fear. How is fear affecting your life, or how has it affected your life? We'd love to hear from you.
So let's kind of break those down, like the F everything and run, or false evidence appearing real. I think that often when I use the words corrode or erode our relationships or our life out of fear. So I know, for one thing, working with couples for so many years, that there's a saying, until you can be in the relationship without fear of losing it, you're not really in the relationship. And I find that saying to be true. And it's one of the hardest ones to live into, because when we really want something, who wants to lose it? I mean, when you guys want something, are you afraid of losing it? I certainly am. So we have fear. If I do this, then I'll lose. And that can be with a job. If you go on a job interview and you're like, oh, I'm not going to say that because they won't give me the job, that can be fear. In relationship, I see it in every way. I mean, a kid eats a cookie and they knew they weren't supposed to have the cookie before dinner, and the parent walks in the room. They're afraid of punishment. Who likes to be punished? So they're like, I didn't eat the cookie. And that's just
automatic, right? Automatic. It took me a long time to get out of that automatic. Somebody says, Timothy, did you, even when I was maybe 24 or something, did you, I don't know what they're going to say, but I'm going to lie the minute they say it, because whether I did it or not, I don't want to get in trouble. I'm so afraid of being unloved or being rejected or not being good enough. And I think that's a big fear, right? The one of, you walk into a room of strangers, or you go on a first date, it's that fear of being rejected or not accepted or not included. A lot of people.
Yeah, and we all have areas of ourselves that we love, and we're who we are no matter what anyone thinks. And then we all have areas that we judge in ourselves. And those are the areas that really come up around fear, because if I don't like that in me, I'm really afraid that you're not going to like it in me. So I'm going to try to avoid showing you it. And these ways of being dishonest in relationship cause wedges. And guess what it robs you of? you will not feel completely loved by another person if you're holding back certain things, because there's always, even if it's not in your conscious mind, it's in your unconscious. If they knew this, they wouldn't love me. And so even though they're completely loving you, even though they're completely showing up for you, there's that little wedge in the relationship of I'm not lovable because, we all have these stories. It's the part of the human condition. And I'm not saying go out and talk to everyone and tell everyone every little detail of your life. I mean, obviously that's not safe. But I'm talking about in our most intimate relationships where we want to have trust and where fear can get in the way of having that kind of intimacy or having that kind of love.
You're talking about face everything and reveal. I can hear it in your words. So you're giving us kind of the nuts and bolts of it. Of be vulnerable, and not with the bank when you're asking for a loan. They don't need to know that you broke your leg when you were 12 or blah, blah, blah. But with your significant relationships, being able to be, as Heidi says, an open book.
Yeah. So again, you guys join in on the comment box. What do you think of those acronyms? And what do you think about fear? What are you super afraid of? You might not want somebody to know. And well, I'm sure Timothy and I will tell stories about this, but I want to read. I was talking to one of my clients about fear the other night, and she said, Heidi, I'm so afraid of losing this relationship. I'm going to cause it to happen. And she's been acting out in ways that she's not proud of and that she's afraid would be discovered. And so it reminded me of this. So these cards are, let's see if I can get it on there. The medicine cards, they're Native American. This was a deck my mom always had in the house, bless her heart. I just give her a little tribute because she's no longer on this planet. She passed away, but we always used to read these medicine cards, and rabbit is the one that has to do with fear. So there's a little rabbit, and I'm going to read to you guys this story, and maybe we'll slow down and kind of break it down, but it's just interesting. So, sacred little rabbit, please drop your fright. Running doesn't stop the pain or turn the dark to light. A long time ago, no one really knows how long ago it was, Rabbit was a brave and fearless warrior. Rabbit was befriended by Eyewalker, a witch. The witch and Rabbit spent much time together, sharing and talking. The two were very, very close. One day, Eyewalker and Rabbit were walking along, and they sat down on the trail to rest. Rabbit said, I'm so thirsty. Eyewalker picked up a leaf, blew on it, and then handed Rabbit a gourd of water. Rabbit drank the water but didn't say anything. Then Rabbit said, I am hungry. Eyewalker picked up a stone and blew on it and changed it to a turnip for the rabbit. She gave the turnip to Rabbit to eat. Rabbit tasted it and then ate the turnip with relish. But still, Rabbit did not say anything. The two continued along the trail, which led into the mountains. Near the top, Rabbit tripped and fell and rolled almost to the bottom. Rabbit was in very sad condition when Eyewalker got to him. She used a magic salve and Rabbit to heal his great pain and mend his broken bones. Rabbit did not say a word. Several days later, Eyewalker went searching for her best friend. She searched high and low, but Rabbit was nowhere to be found. Finally, Eyewalker gave up. She met Rabbit quite by accident one day. Rabbit, why in the world are you hiding from me and avoiding me? Sounds similar in relationship. When the magic happens, the intimacy comes and we hide. The witch asked, why are you hiding from me, avoiding me? Rabbit said, because I am very afraid of you. I'm afraid of magic, answered Rabbit, cowering. Leave me alone. I see, said Eyewalker. I have used my magical powers on your behalf, and now you turn on me and refuse my friendship. I want nothing more to do with your powers, Rabbit said. Rabbit did not even see the tears his words were bringing up, and Eyewalker cried their eyes out. I hope we never meet and that I never see you again, Rabbit continued. Rabbit, Eyewalker said, we were once great friends and companions, but no more. It is within my power to destroy you. So I want to pause right there, because when we are afraid of something, we've given it power to destroy us. We've given it power. That's the false evidence appearing real. We have fear that something outside of ourselves can take away or give to us, and we've given it our power. Some in recovery saying making it your higher power. And so I have the power to destroy you. So when we give away our false evidence appearing real, we're giving whatever that is our power. I will not do this, but from this day forward, I lay a curse on you and your tribe. From now on, you will call your fears, and your fears will come to you. Be on your way, for the sweet medicines that bound us together as friends are broken. Now Rabbit is the fear caller. He goes out and shouts, Eagle, I'm so afraid of you. If Eagle doesn't hear him, Rabbit calls louder, Eagle, stay away from me. Eagle, now hearing Rabbit, comes and eats him. Rabbit calls bobcats, wolves, coyotes, and snakes, and they all come and eat him. As the story shows, rabbit medicine people are so afraid of tragedy, illness, breakups, divorce, being taken, that they call those very fears to them to teach them lessons. The keynote here is what you resist will persist. What you fear the most is what you will become. Here's the lesson. If you pulled Rabbit, stop talking about horrible things happening and get rid of what if in your vocabulary. This card may signal a time of worry about the future or trying to exercise your control over something that is not even informed, the future. Stop now. Write down your fears and be willing to feel them. Breathe into them and feel them running through your body into Mother Earth as a giveaway.
We have a person in the chat box that said, amazingly said, giving you the namaste. This reminds me, just if you are interested, go back and watch the recovery talk on beliefs, because we're at this point where, you know, what you resist persists. If we have beliefs that are like the rabbit, are creating certain actions, and those actions are creating a result, then we come back to the belief and we reinforce it. And I was working with a client just prior to this call who was working on a belief that he's not lovable. No one can love him unless he provides care and stability in the form of money, house, and for his loved ones and his family. And so his actions do that. And the results are he has the house and has all those things. But when he comes back up to the belief, he's still left with, if I stop doing all those things, they won't love me. And the fear is they won't love me. And it's actually getting in the way of his intimacy with all of his relationships. So as we talk about identifying our fears, part of the work is then moving into what are the beliefs, how do they serve us, how don't they serve us, what other belief do we want to call in so that we are bringing to us what we truly want and what we truly deserve and desire. And there was one other thing that was so interesting in the rabbit card was you could see which character in the story was avoidant and which character in the story was more anxious. And you could also see a bit of perpetrator calling victim and victim calling perpetrator. So I found that great. I used to have the medicine cards. I think I'm going to go buy another book and another deck.
Yeah, I love that fable. And I know, I come from a fear-based upbringing. Like both my moms, I needed two moms. I was so much work. I give them both equal credit. One was biological and one was with me my whole life and still is. They were both very fear-based. And I grew up with that kind of thinking, to be afraid of this or afraid of that. And I'm not real fear-based in the world, but in relationship, that's where it comes up for me. And I have certainly been rabbit and called those fears to me, And I think it would be fun to talk about. So, there's some obvious healthy fears, right? You are afraid of touching a hot stove because it'll burn your hand. So it's a healthy fear. There's nothing wrong with that fear, right?
I did it today.
Huh?
I'm holding ice. No one can see it, but I'm holding ice because I burnt my hand pretty severely. And it's going to teach me to pay attention. So, a healthy fear.
Yeah. And I think, a healthy fear is not to run out in the road and get hit by a car. So there's something beautiful in our DNA and in our brain that is very protective of those kind of things, of accidents, of getting hurt, right? But let's put that into relationship and we get hurt. Our brain does the same thing as when we touch a hot stove. It's like, oh, that hurt you last time. Shut down, run away, go away, avoid. How many of you have had that experience?
Yeah, or the opposite side of that, right? For those that aren't conflict avoidant, confront, be aggressive, get what you want, dominate. It can go a lot of different ways. And I love that you're bringing in fright, flight, flop, freeze, the amygdala response. It's why humanity is here today, right? Oh my God, that Johnny drank out of that creek and he died. Don't anybody drink out of that creek. And we remember that. But that doesn't mean the next creek we come to is undrinkable. Not all creeks. And sometimes we get to, oh, this person did this to me. Every relationship I'm in, they're going to do this to me. Well, what happens? Every relationship you're choosing to be in, probably choosing someone who's behaving that way, you kind of keep recreating that. So looking at your fears and being more discerning about what they are and how do they serve me and how don't they.
Yeah, it's just like beliefs, like Timothy was saying, like, is this fear helping me or is this fear hindering me from living into what I want to be in my life? So I want to talk about a healthy fear that was very hard for me to adopt. And that was around my alcoholism. And even when I got sober, which took me forever, I was very stubborn. I still had in my mind, because I had stopped and started so many times, I always thought, well, I know what works now. I've had some years of recovery. I know that if I go out, we call it go out or relapse, I can come back. I know what to do, right? That's all and I have never been able to do it alone. It's been a we thing for me. So when I lost my little brother to alcoholism and he took his own life, I realized that I don't get to know. If I choose to pick up a drink again or a drug, it took away that cockiness or that lie in my brain that I can just, that's such my addict talking. I've started so many things like I'm just gonna, or I can just go out and do this and come right back, or I can just go out and start Monday or whatever. You guys have heard the story. I mean, in your own head. That when he lost his life, and then now I've had years of recovery, like many friends that have gone back out and they never made it back. And so I have a very healthy fear now. To me, it's like poison. To me, it's like running out in the road and getting hit by a bus. I don't do it. I don't contemplate it. I have a healthy fear and I just don't even consider it. And that's how I look at addiction in those substances now, for me, drugs and alcohol. So I call that a healthy fear. That wasn't one I instantaneously had. It's one I had to choose, right? And we're going to talk about unhealthy fear too, but I'm wondering if you have a healthy fear, Timothy, that you want to share about.
Yeah, I have. So judgments can often be fear-based, whereas discernment is not fear-based. Discernment is, that's a fast-moving car. If I try to cross the road right now, I will get hit by the car. Discernment, healthy fear. Judgment is more like, yeah, I'm Superman. I can run fast. I can get across that road, and bam, you get hit by the car, right? And when we think about it in relationship, we look at someone and we go, oh, they're fat. I don't like fat people. Lo and behold, one day you sit next to someone, you start talking to them, and you realize, wow, they're really nice. And they're overweight, but they're really nice. I really like them. And so your judgment's getting in the way. It's fear-based. Whereas discernment is, this is a nice person. Doesn't matter really what they look like. So I've had to do a lot of work with differentiating between my fears or preferences, opposite side of judgment, but not necessarily serving me, and discernment, which is actually seeing accurately. Discernment isn't an I thing, it's a we thing. I rely on other people who I'm really close with and have let get close to me to give me feedback and help me go, hey, Timothy, that person I'm not so sure about. And not in judgment, but in I'm worried that this might happen, so I'm letting you know. And that's this fine line between getting caught up in the fear or the preferences versus really discerning. And what I heard Heidi saying earlier is she's come to discernment knowing if I drink alcohol, it's going to affect my life in negative ways, and I'm just not going to drink anymore. It's a discernment. Whereas the addict part of her says, hey, you could just do it one more time, then we'll see what happens. Maybe you've changed, and you can always come back to your support systems and everybody else if you need to. And that's not like a we. If Heidi goes and talks to her core people, they're going to go, no, I don't think that's a good idea, right? In my own personal life, just to bring it into an example, I have done business with people for far too long or at all. I might have, if I'd used discernment, I wouldn't have done it at all, because I was afraid that without them, I wouldn't be able to do it, or that if I didn't do it with them, it wouldn't work. And in my discernment self, I knew this is a really bad idea. But my fear of not being able to accomplish what I wanted to accomplish without them made me actually get involved with them, as opposed to using my discernment and seeking someone else who was trustworthy to do the project with. So this doesn't have to just be in relationship. It can also be in matters of business or elsewhere.
Definitely. I'm saying hi to Melanie, and is it Gary? Gary?
I see Gowrie.
Gary. You can tell us. And Melanie. And whoever else is on the call, we say aloha. And again, please comment in the chat box if you have questions or you want to tell us a fear, or, what is the difference between healthy and unhealthy fears. We just love to hear from you. So the point of fear is for our safety, right? It's to protect us. And where it corrodes our relationship in our life is when we become dishonest, or when we don't show up fully in a relationship or fully present for something because we're afraid of losing it. We're afraid of loss. And essentially, fear was put there so we avoid losing our life. So when we feel threatened in relationship, we go into that reptilian brain and we're like, oh my God, I'm going to die. I can't say this. Just even the cookie, the child is going through that in the reptilian brain. Like, I'm going to die right now because I ate this cookie. So I'm not going to say I ate the cookie. And
I really want a cookie.
Me too. Cookies and milk. So I really want to nail that home because it seems light and funny, but think of all the times you've been dishonest in your relationship. We all have. And so there's a couple things at play here. One is coming to a place of integrity within yourself, that you're okay with whatever you're doing, however your life is unfolding, having compassion because we're never perfect, and that you can show up authentically you and know that if someone loves you or they don't love you, that's about them, and you're okay with yourself enough to do that. That's one way we can be rigorously honest, right? And we always will have fear. We'll talk about how to self-soothe fear. That's one of the ways, is getting so solid in your own self-esteem and so compassionate with your glitches. Because like I said, I'm not setting the bar where I'm ever going to be perfect. But that can I be with myself, and can I love myself, and can I face everything and reveal myself to you in my most intimate relationships? And it's usually those parts of ourselves that we judge or we don't like, that we don't want to show to somebody else. We have shame, or we have embarrassment, or we have fear of loss. And so we don't show up fully. And what can happen in a huge sense, there's many things that can happen, and Timothy will share some too, I'm sure. One of them, when you're afraid, you can go into the codependency, like, well, I'm just going to please you because I'm afraid of losing you. And I'm also afraid of your temper. So I'm not going to be honest because it won't be met well. But we stay in the relationship and we continue to be dishonest, meaning we're not lying to them about where we're going or who we're talking to or whatever, but we're withholding to keep the temperature warm, right? We don't want too hot. We don't want too cold. And over time, what this does to you is, one, make you feel unloved, and two, really make you feel resentful and exhausted over time. So it's only hurting us when we're acting out of that fear, where when we come into that place of like, wow, this sucks so bad, I'm just going to be who I am. And if we're still good, great, I'll stay. And if we're not, I'm out. That's when the fear goes away, right? And that's when I say that saying, we can't really be in a relationship until we're not afraid of losing it.
That's where you get both of these things: face everything and recover, right? Face everything and reveal. And then you get to use the healthy fuck it card if it doesn't work out. But using the healthy fuck everything card first isn't. And I love that you're bringing this into codependency. One other basket of fear that you're reminding me of is social anxiety, or anxiety in general, which tends to be fear-based. So I'm all alone, nobody loves me, and we think of a friend. Oh, I'm going to text him. 3 days go by, we haven't texted him. We're using avoidance as a tactic because we're afraid that if we do text him, he won't get back to us, or worse, they won't want to meet. And then we're in a time of COVID and all this gets even worse. And so anxiety, almost always stress, anxiety, almost always fear, some level of fear going on that's unhealthy. And in codependency, almost always fear driven, like Heidi said. I'm going to get left, I'm not enough.
So let's talk about what we can do for others and for ourselves, because ultimately being honest and dealing with fear is 100% our responsibility, right? And I know for me, the people that I feel totally safe around and I don't feel judged by, I tell a whole lot more truth to, right? Anybody relate to that? I have a few of those people in my life that I feel completely safe. Like, I know that I can tell you whatever crazy thoughts I'm having. I can tell you what I've done in my past. I can show you the good parts of me and the shadow parts of me, and I will still feel safe with you. And so creating safety for those you love, just like the kid, like, I mean, I look at this, I work with a lot of families that have older kids, like teenagers. And I look at my kids, and this is not to give myself a woo woo. I did plenty of horrendous things in my parenting, but they feel so safe. Like, they can tell me anything. And they've told me some things I had to, like, grow out my fingernails and hang on to the bottom of my thighs to sit there with them and hear. Just kidding. But
you're not kidding.
But they knew that my love for them would not be rocked. Not be rocked. And how wonderful of a gift to give someone, and this isn't to say we don't have boundaries or you can do anything to me and I'll be in your face, but just, creating safety in relationship is a big deal. How about you, Timothy? Have you been in relationships where
I want to add on to what you said first, and that is the beautiful result of facing our fears and disclosing what needs to be, what's in the field in the relationship or relationships that needs to be revealed. A good example would be, I'm a queer male. Okay, I'm 55 years old. It's taken me a long time, but I've recognized I don't fit the heteronormative thing. But as I explored that and opened up about it, I was being very selective of who I would tell, who I wouldn't tell, because my fear was someone's going to not want to work with me as a client. They're going to judge me. They're not going to like me. All stuff in my head. In reality, if you don't want to work with me because I'm queer, meaning I don't fit the heteronormative model, why would I want to work with you either, right? Like, let's just get that out of the way and go. And yet, I don't lead with that because I can coach anybody. They don't need to know that I'm queer. I'm just being really transparent today on the call. And a lot of us get into withholding. And what do we end up being around? We end up being around people who either we think don't really love us or they don't really love us. And I'd rather be in my intimate circle with people who love me and accept me for the crazy, wonderful dude I am, queer and all, than be around someone who I'm worried might not, or worse, really won't. And the only way to fact check that is to face and reveal. And I think it's just a great tool. Scary at first, but it can revolutionize your life. I am now with people, all the people that I've been close with and I've loved are great people. But the people I'm with right now fully accept me for who I am because I'm not hiding anything. And man, the field feels open and fun and exciting. And we call each other in to talk when we have an issue. Whereas before I was with people who we would hide things or withhold things. And worse, if we did try to talk about it, we'd get into these calling out things where you're hurting each other. I'm done relating that way. So I think it's really good wisdom. Face and reveal and see what happens. See how your life changes. And do it compassionately, kindly, slowly. You don't need to tell somebody everything all at once if you've been withholding for a long time.
And it's good information for yourself to create more intimacy with yourself, to look at when you are afraid to tell or you don't want to show up, like Timothy just shared. Like, what is the fear underneath? Are you afraid of loss? Are you afraid of being judged? Are you afraid of being rejected? Like, what are you afraid of? And I love what you said. Like, if I tell my truth and that person doesn't want to work with me, why would I want to work with them? And I love that you said that, because that was my epiphany with self-acceptance. Only for me, it was being in a fat body. And I've been up and down in my body, 70 pounds and 5'1". That's a lot of weight on a 5'1" person. So I used to have fear that I was unlovable or that, whatever. I don't need to go into it. But I had that epiphany one day of, why would I want to be with someone who doesn't accept my body the way it is today? It might change in 5 years. I hope they also accept it then. But it's the only body I got today. I can't shed 70 pounds today or put on 20 pounds tomorrow. You know, it takes time. And not to make it about a weight thing, but that feeling of, can I accept myself enough to be rejected by you? If you don't really like if you don't really like the being that I am right now.
And to tie into that, because you asked me a question earlier, I'm going to bring both these things back together. I had a relationship where I loved somebody in a way I don't know if I ever will again. And yes, it was sometimes codependent. And yes, sometimes it was avoidant and anxious. And we were working on a lot of stuff and we were both doing our best. And we both did our worst. I probably more than her, just to take full responsibility for my worst. And my worst came out of a fear of losing her. I was being pretty transparent. I was being pretty honest, but I was afraid of losing her. And I believe she was afraid of losing me. And in that, we kept hurting ourselves and hurting each other. And so there are times where it is important we're fully reveal with people. And even when we're being completely transparent and we're still getting hurt and we're still hurting other people, I think it's a really good time, especially if you've had a coach and a therapist already involved, to just disengage from each other. It's, for whatever reasons, it was beyond my ability at that time, with the tools and the knowledge I had of myself and my core wounds and my family of origin and the healing work that I'd done. It was beyond my ability to stay in the relationship. And because I didn't get out at the right time or in the right way, I acted out worse and destroyed all possibility of even having a friendship with this person. And that weighs on me. I don't feel guilty and shame anymore. I've done a lot of work to release that. But that fear of being left or being alone or not being good enough or whatever that real deep fear is, if you can identify that and look at all your relationships, and if you're brave enough, ask them for feedback on, this is a fear that drives me, and I just want your opinion. Where do you see that showing up in our field, in our relating? A lot of the times people will just tell you, well, I see it here. Not being afraid to ask for feedback. I guess that's another good tool, asking those that love you, how do you see me? And being willing to really listen.
I like that. I was just thinking of another fear. And I guess this is fear of conflict. And What is our reaction to fear? So I want you guys, if you guys can type in the chat box, what is one of your reactions to fear? Like one of mine is to avoid, right? I'll avoid talking to the person. Like I'm in a confrontation with, I live in two places right now because of school, and one of my roommates has relapsed and it's horrific. It's on heroin and it's been combative and horrible. And I was so worn out by it all, and I was afraid to have another confrontation, another talk. And I'm afraid of the conflict. I'm also afraid of my reaction right now because I'm tired, I'm exhausted, and I'm angry. So I'm not showing up as the best person that I can be in the conversation. So, that's when we have to weigh out. Is it safer to take a day and pause and go back? Or am I just being afraid am I avoiding dealing with the inevitable because I'm afraid? And these are some of the questions we need to ask ourselves when we're in fear.
When you think of that confrontation and it going as your mind predicts, the fear predicts badly, what's the outcome that you really are terrified of? What's like that deepest thing?
For me, it's always about relationship. I think relationships are my top priority. I guess that's why I do the work that I do, but they always have been, even before I did this. So I'm afraid of the relationships that'll affect around me. I'm afraid because I'm having to set boundaries to take care of myself that he'll hate me, even though he's in his addiction and whatever. I don't want to be hated by him. It's a person that I love. And yet I have to take care of myself. And right now he's hating on me.
I go in that same situation, I'm going to get physically hurt because when I was a kid or I'm physically going to hurt someone else because this would happen. When I was a kid, people would make fun of me and I would just try to avoid it because it hurt. And if we got to where I confronted it, then usually it got to physical blows. And then usually either I hurt them or they hurt me physically. So there's this fear, even as an adult, in confronting someone that it's going to get physical, and it's completely irrational, but it's there from some experiences that I had at being bullied and defending myself from bullies.
I'm also so afraid of being judged. Who out there is afraid of being judged? I hate being judged. And one of the things that happens for me, and I wonder if this has happened to you, Timothy, because I've been doing this work 20 years, right? There's a certain expectation people have on you when you do this work. And there are times that I communicate amazing and I use all these tools and I show up in my best self. And there are times when I'm triggered into my past trauma and I'm not showing up my best self. And when I'm very afraid and I'm super hurt, I have a very nasty sarcastic tone. And sarcasm is like a protective survival skill that I used to use. And it'll still come out sometimes. And it came out this weekend when I was trying to get this person out of my house because they're not paying rent and they're using heroin. And see my sarcastic tone. So this weekend, I hardened myself because I'm so hurt. I would just fall into tears and hug the person and cry and beg them to go get better, which I've done also. But I get this hardness about me and I get sarcastic. So I'm going with my tone and I'm kind of harsh in what I'm saying. And what I get back because of the profession I'm in is, oh, you're talking like that and you're supposed to be a relationship therapist. And that is one of my biggest fears. I hate that. I hate that when that happens because it's like, yeah, I'm human too. And then it's like, wow, I am not representing my skills very well right now, am I? So there's a balance. And I wonder if that has happened to you too, Timothy. For me, it's only happened in my intimate family. I haven't really had outside people do that. My brother said it once, and now my roommate.
I've had the whole wheel of what you're talking about where I've been sarcastic and then the person who really is at fault, like in this case, they aren't paying their rent, they're doing heroin. And my sarcasm then gets thrown back at me as, how can you talk to me like that? You say you're an empathetic person and look at you, you're talking down to me or, that kind of thing. And then I've done the avoidant, done all of it. But I will say I did once have a heroin addict in my apartment, and I grabbed all of his things and him and took him to the curb and set them all down and threw a 2x4 in front of the doors. So he couldn't, I had that plan so he couldn't get back in. I'd already told him, like, you're out. He hadn't been paying rent. I had the lease in my name. So I just moved him along. And to this day, we're really good friends. That was the beginning of him getting sober. And that was an instance where I wasn't afraid of him. I knew I wasn't going to hurt him physically. And I knew if he tried, then, you know, I'd probably call the police. But I knew I was just, you're out of here. I'm done with this. And I kept my calm and stayed really in a good place. But I was compassionate. I wasn't sarcastic. I didn't do a lot of those things that I can default to when I'm stressed. Avoidance, sarcasm, anger.
Yeah, why don't you guys type into the chat box, what are some of your defaults when you're afraid? Like, where do you go that's maybe non-coherent? Mine is harshness and sarcasm. That's one of them when I'm really afraid.
Teresa said sarcasm's my middle name.
I love Teresa. Hi, Teresa. And hi, Daryl. Thanks for getting on. And Kit said, I would think the person who says that is deflecting from what's really happening. All right. Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I do. I often go to making things sound nice. So I'm wanting to say, hey, please move that noisy thing that you're watching on your computer in the kitchen to further on the other side of the house because it's affecting my call with my client. That's direct. I'll say, hi, Heidi. Oh, I notice you're watching, you know, a program. It's a little loud and it's kind of affecting my session with my client. And I'm just waiting and hoping that she'll say, oh, okay, I'll get up and move. And I'm so afraid of her response, which might be mean or snarky or this or that. And it's just so much better for me anyway, to be direct with people. No nicey, no meanness, just clear. And whatever they do, they do. It's not my responsibility if Heidi gets upset and slams her coffee cup down on the table, or if she storms off. Yeah. Or if she turns and says, well, last week you made noise, you know, and better to just be direct.
Yeah. So did any of you guys type in there when I look? Let's see. What do you do when you're really afraid? So avoidance, lying, sarcasm. I mean, these are examples. Shut down, wearing masks. Having masks on is something that we do in relationship, like wearing the mask of this or that, or I'm not upset when you're really hurting inside because you're afraid to tell someone you're hurting. I've had that fear in relationship, and this is when you don't have safety. When I don't feel safety in a relationship, I'm still at a place in my life because of the work I've done on myself. I'll still show up, but I'm met with, not having a safe place to share vulnerably. And I'll do it anyway because I can self-soothe, but it's awful. It's awful to share yourself with someone when you're afraid or you're feeling insecure or whatever, and you're not met in the way that feels safe to you.
And yet often creating safety for oneself means facing that fear, doing the reveal, and actually being vulnerable. And I think it's really good if you feel like you can't do that with someone or with a group of people, get a coach, get a therapist, or get a friend, get someone to be your witness. Because usually just having a third person there in these kind of difficult conversations where there's a lot of fear, that third person tends to bring an awareness to both parties. And so I'm afraid this person's going to get angry if I tell them this. And you've got a third person here observing and hopefully mediating. This person won't get as angry, and we're able to talk and actually move through it.
I'm going to ask you a question. Wait, let's see. Somebody commented in there. Going to my cave to give myself some self-love those times. Yeah, good idea. And Scott says we rock. Thank you, Scott. Glad you're here. I want to ask you a question, Timothy, and don't filter it. Just whatever first comes to you, and then you can ask me the question and I'll answer it. So what would you do right now in your life if you had no fear?
put my coaching services out there more on social media and in a humble, grounded way. I don't want to be that person that's just bombarding you with, come give me money and let me do this, but really just sincerely, here's what I have to offer. And I have some availability in my schedule, which is true. And I already did one today. I owned in front of everyone that I'm a queer 55-year-old male in a society that in my story doesn't really value that. And yet I have lots of people around me who do value that. And that was a risky thing. So
Yeah, that was really facing everything and revealing. Thank you. Thank you for being
and what
me.
would you do if you were to face your fears in your life right now? What things come up? Good question. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that came up for me is I have a fear of not getting things done. And part of that is helping other people too. And if I had no fear, I would put solid boundaries around my schedule to really take care of myself, to have yoga in my schedule, to have this in my schedule, to have that in my schedule. And I often overextend myself, and it's out of fear of losing this or that or the other thing, right? So if I had no fear, I would do that. And then the vision that we were talking about of retreat and that, if I had no fear, I would just dive in and do it.
I think it's coming. So keep your ears open for the Heidi Timothy retreat in Hawaii soon.
What would you guys do if you had no fear? Type it in. I want to read it. I want to share. What would you do in your life right now if you had no fear? So I'm going to read those acronyms again for anyone that didn't hear them while you guys are thinking about what would you do in your life if you had no fear. I'll post it in the comment box. So fear is false evidence appearing real. Face or fuck everything and run. Face everything and recover. And face everything and reveal. And I want to go back to the one false evidence appearing real, and something Timothy said earlier that I think is really important in relationship is that when we are in fear, we will look for evidence. And that's what Timothy said earlier. And it's so true. I've seen this in myself in relationship, especially when I was triggered in love addiction. I will look for evidence. There's a couple ways. Oh, I'm going to say this. So if you're out there and you're contemplating leaving a relationship, but you think you're not leaving the relationship, you might be looking for evidence to leave the relationship because you're afraid to end it of your own cognition. So you want to find something so bad that they did that you're looking for evidence all the time so you can leave. Have you seen that, Timothy?
I've done that. Yeah.
I have done that too.
Someone just said, face everything and rise. They gave us a new one-liner. I like that. Face everything and rise.
Oh, I like it. I like it, Kit. Thank you. Teresa says, I'm too old now. That's her fear. Oh, you're too old now to not have fear and do something new in your life?
No, I get that one. I tell myself I'm too old to do something. And there's times where I feel invisible. And so I tell myself the other fear of, I know I don't matter anymore. I'm too old. People don't. And I'm looking at myself as I say this, and I'm like, this is so ridiculous. And so if you're thinking this is ridiculous, bear with me. It's just a thought that goes through the head.
Oh, I love this one. If I had no fear, I'd tell someone who's just a friend that I'm romantically in love with them.
Oh, yeah.
I love it.
How many times have you been somewhere, right? You're somewhere, grocery store, restaurant, a workshop, dinner with friends, and they bring someone who you don't know. And inside you're thinking, wow, that person's so beautiful or so attractive. And your fear is that they'll take that the wrong way or that it's too much. And so you don't say it, right? Or even nice things like something else about the person. Wow, you're so funny. And you don't say it because you're afraid of telling somebody like that. And we hold back. It's so silly, as opposed to, hey, Heidi, can I give you appreciation?
Yes.
Ah, great. She said yes, so I have consent. I think Heidi, if you agree with me, put this in the chat box, has one of the most beautiful smiles. And her facial expressions are extraordinary. Brightens up my day, makes me laugh. She has an incredible sense of humor. Now, those are things I have said to her before, but not recently and not as much. And I'm actually feeling them. And I believe, Heidi can tell us, it's actually improving the field, improving the relationship. I'm not doing it to stroke her back or try to get something or manipulate her at all. It's actual authentic appreciation. So, and that's healthy. That's not operating out of fear, right? If we're fearful, we won't allow ourselves to say those things to people.
Yeah, that's a good, and thank you, Timothy. That did feel really wonderful. It made me smile.
Kit and Teresa say, yes, she does.
Yay, thank you guys. I love smiling, and I do have a very strange sense of humor. I love to laugh. I'll do just about anything to laugh or make other people laugh. Pretty silly things. I lost my train of thought. Timothy, save me.
Oh,
I'll think of it in a second.
I think, coming back to this idea, sometimes we are afraid that it's not safe enough to be truthful or to be honest or to express ourselves. And I'm going to challenge that if it's not, then get some support so that you can do it. But most of the time, I think that's just a thought in our minds. And in reality, if we do it with compassion and do it simply, keep it clear, concise, and consistent, as I like to say, the 3 C's, we can add a fourth one, compassionate. So the 4 C's. If we can do the 4 C's with someone, then there's almost nothing we can't tell someone. We can create our own safety, and often it creates safety for the other person to also lean in and share. When we're really in a situation where we are unsafe, then get someone else to be there with us.
And how many of you are afraid of not getting it right? So you might stay in paralysis around making a decision or doing the wrong thing because you've had evidence in the past that maybe you put time and energy into something and it failed in your opinion, or you didn't get out of it what you thought you wanted. And so there's fear around doing it again. And I think this also happens in relationship. I mean, as I'm saying that, I can think of it with work, I can think of it relationship. When we put a lot of ourself into something, everybody wants a return on investment. ROI. What is your ROI? And let's say we've gotten really sad ROI and we're afraid to get hurt again, or we're afraid to put that much effort in again and not feel like we're getting any return on investment. Maybe that's a bad thing to say, I don't know. But that we don't put ourselves out there 100%. I mean, look at your past relationships. When were you 100%? And can you see in the next one, maybe you're 70%, and in the next one, maybe 50, maybe 20, maybe now you're back to 100. I mean, it's just something interesting to look at, because I can see how I've really held myself back because of that natural thing we have in our DNA that says, when there's, save yourself. You're going to die, so be afraid so you don't die. And I want to remind you that reptilian brain is beautiful for not getting run over by a car, not getting eaten by a lion, not burning your hand on the stove. Those are healthy fears. And the fears that keep us from being intimate with other humans because we're afraid of heartbreak are unhealthy fears.
That's a beautiful note to possibly finish on.
Yeah. Let's check the comment box, make sure there's no other comments. I don't want to miss you guys. If you put in there, what would you do if you had no fear? So love wildly, love openly, love with abandon, and know that, broken hearts are cracked so the light can get in.
The only thing I'd add to Heidi's version of love there is love with discernment. So yes to wild, yes to open, and yes to discernment, because we can learn, we can grow, we can do things differently.
Yeah, thank you. See you guys next Tuesday on Recovery Talk, 5 p.m. every week, Pacific Standard Time. And check out Love Coach Academy. There's 7 days a week of free support, amazing coaches, amazing people. And reach out and ask us about our class coming up and what Timothy talked about earlier in the call with relationship essentials and classes. And we are teaching one on love, fantasy, addiction. So we'll be talking to you soon. Take care.